Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundlesssuccess to join today. Let's get you to the next level. Hello, and welcome to the Success Showcase, the podcast that helps you succeed in your business, life, and career. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin, with the Modern Observer Group, and with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. And we are kicking off our 300th episode. How are you doing, Chip?
I'm retiring. See you later. No, I'm just
There you
kidding.
go.
Doing great. Trying to make the best out of a rainy April day here, but up here in Husky Land, the women won their first national championship in 9 years yesterday. I'm sorry, all you
Yes,
folks
they
from South
did.
Carolina, but they were by far the best team. And I predicted that going into the tournament because they've been so injury riddled for so long. And they have three superstars on the team: Paige Beckers, who's going to be the #1 draft choice; AZ Fudd, who just went ballistic yesterday; and then somebody who will eventually be known as one of the best women's basketball players ever, in Sarah Strong. She is just an amazing ball player. And it's great to see Gino win another championship. He's a couple months older than me, and he won his first one when he was about 40. So pretty cool. It's we're having fun up in Husky Land today.
Yeah, they had a hell of a run this year. And, I've been very busy. As I said, we're kicking off our 300th episode, but we're not the only ones. We've got these milestones coming up and down the Xvadio Podcast Network. We've got our sister podcast, Lighting the Candle, a world that works, is about to hit its 200th episode. In the next few weeks, Raw Naked Truth, which is our daily news brief, is going to hit its 600th episode. And we're gearing up for a brand new podcast called Thank You for Your Service, which is going to salute the men and women in our armed services and first responders. So we've got so much going on here. And as I just told you, on a more personal note, I just found out my oldest son is going to get married soon. So we got lots of great things going on.
Yep, bring on the daughter-in-law and then bring on the grandkids. Go, go, go.
Yeah, I don't know that they're ready to make me a grandfather yet. I'm ready. I'm good with it, but I don't think they're ready for it yet.
Yeah. You won't complain.
Right. So, yes, as we get into our 300th episode, we're going to be talking about the lessons learned over the past 300 episodes. And it is amazing when you think about what's gone on over the course of that time. We've had 3 different presidents over 4 terms. We had COVID. And we just kept adapting.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, when we got on, we just started talking about how long we've been doing this. But October 2016, when we first came on the air, it was within a couple of weeks of the election between Hillary and Trump.
Yeah.
Obama was still our president. And then obviously in early 2020, COVID hit, and that changed the whole world in a lot of different ways. And we over the years, it's just been wonderful. I mean, you and I got together because we knew each other for a long time beforehand through networking, but we also really are in sync as far as the way that we look at life and how to accomplish things and so on and so forth. And obviously with your background and always looking and learning these new things and coming up with these topics, it's been fantastic education for me, being along for the ride, having you share with what's going on, because obviously he's forced me to do a lot of research week to week as we're doing things. But today, it's just great to be talking about the different things that we did and what I did to prepare for this. Because you said let's just talk about what we've learned over the last 300 episodes. And one of the things that I always like to start with is when I preach and what got us to me involved with this in the first place. And basically, what we talk about in these episodes, I always start my commercials with living life with a four P's: purpose, passion, positivity, and plan is the formula for happiness and success, and turning obstacles into opportunities. Take the first two words, living life. We talk a lot about the present moment.
Yes, we did.
We talk about purpose, passion, positivity, and a plan. And that's your own personal development plan. That's finding your why and basically making sure that you're getting out of bed every single day with a plan to do something that's going to change the world and give you joy while you're doing it. And that's what it's so important. And then obviously I talk about the kindness platform, which just basically talks about where we're all from, which is loving kindness. And if we can lead lives with that, that's what makes the whole thing work. But getting into the different things that we've talked about as far as business organization and work-life balance and things like that, it's just been wonderful. What
Yeah,
hits you
it
first?
it it, ha- it has been amazing the range of topics that we've covered, and they do all sort of run together. Like you mentioned, the kindness platform, and we talk a lot about mindset. We talk a lot about gratitude, and we had a couple of great guests on the show that actually took that topic and showed how it applies to sales. We had Thomas Ahern, who's a sales consultant, talking about that. We had Bob Berg, who was the author of the Go Giver books. And it all ties together. It just goes to show how what you're doing in your personal life and what you're doing in your business life shouldn't be separate. It's the same principles. And talking about Bob Berg and the Go Giver books, we covered so many different books over the last 300 episodes, not just Bob's, but The Miracle Morning, Start with Why, The Greatest Salesman in the World. And there were so many of them.
How to
Rich
win
Dad
friends and
Poor.
influence people, all
Yes.
that.
Um, we did a lot of talking about Napoleon Hill. We were pulling books, from the early 20th century, and they're still applicable today despite all of the changes. I mean, now, most of our listeners probably don't know this, but this podcast actually started out as a series of live events. And then we went to the podcast. That was, the first adaptation we made. But think about when we started. Nobody was talking about AI, never mind actively using it. Zoom for most people was, unheard of.
Yeah, until
So,
COVID. That,
yes.
I had Zoom on my computer, but I didn't start using it until COVID came around. And obviously, I mean, that's one of the things that we discovered as soon as this happened. I mean, with me and you both being involved with chambers and places that have networking meetings and so on and so forth, we wonder what's going to happen without the people. And what happened was by using Zoom, it opened up a whole new world of communication. And yes, it's great that person to person networking is still back, but by Zooming, you can open up meetings around the world. You can expand your sales
Yep.
market around the world just by using this platform. If you want to go to a meeting with a tiny sport coat on and your pajama bottoms, nobody's going to know. It's it's just been an amazing, amazing tool. And all these other things that came because obviously, if we'd known when COVID hit that this thing was going to be a long-standing thing, it would have been horrible, horrific, and so on and so forth. But it really, even though there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that people don't like going on, it brought humanity together in a lot of ways to improve things really ahead of the curve where a lot of improvements were expected. It forced us to do a lot of things that if you predicted before COVID, we'd be doing now. People would probably say, no, that's not going to happen until 2030.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the the advancements that have come about because of necessity are absolutely amazing. And yet, the building blocks of all of it remains the same. We're talking about Zoom, and it opened up so many audiences because you could meet with folks around the world, but the basics of communications are still the same. And we've talked a lot about that, about facial expressions and vocal tones, body language, and all of that, translates through Zoom, but we've had to adapt what we do and extend those basics. And I think that's pretty much a running theme with what we do is focusing on those basics, whether it's mindset or communications or processes. Those basics never change, but how we implement them does, and certainly have since we started this in 2016.
Yeah, and you especially have gotten involved with a lot of networking groups that are really all over the country, all over the world, and we've had some guests on from that. And obviously, you've always been thirsty for knowledge and reading books and so on and so forth. But the resources that you developed by Zooming with all these different places is just amazing. And the people that you've met and brought on here. I mean, last week's Zoom was all about that and the things that you learned. And these
Yeah.
things, maybe they would have happened without COVID, but all this stuff now, I doubt it. But it's just amazing. And obviously, you have a lot of highlights of different things that you brought to the table because of it.
Yeah, I mean, just, last week we were talking about the 10X Growth Conference. Without Zoom, I would not have been able to get there. I would have had to attend in person in Las Vegas, um, for a considerable investment in time and money. And this opened that up, not just to me, but to 150,000 attendees that otherwise wouldn't have been able to get there. And we've had guests on the podcast from around the world. We just had one from the Middle East. We've had from all over the country, from Canada. And we've been able to bring together so many diverse backgrounds and so much diverse experience to not just for us to learn from, but our listeners as well. And it's been absolutely amazing what we've been able to do. And yes, we were doing the podcast via audio prior to Zoom, but this added an extra oomph to it because it allowed me to meet so many more people.
Yeah, and a lot of the guests that we've had on, we've had in specific topics that people really aren't going to pick up a book and read about, but to listen to that, such as grief, personal
Yep.
stress, and a lot of other things that people would like to learn more about, but because maybe they don't even want people to know that they're going through this, this is a great forum to just open this up with experts so we can discuss these issues through here. I know we actually had a grief series on here about
Yeah.
a year ago. It's so these topics are real and they affect everybody. And the nice thing about this, about Zoom, is that you're able to just listen to this podcast and people don't have to know who you are and so on, but hopefully you're getting educated, you're getting encouraged, and that's what this whole thing is all about. We call it the Success Showcase, and it's just an absolutely perfect name because success all starts with happiness and joy, and that's all the two of us are wishing for everybody out there.
Yes, we are. And we keep expanding that. I mean, you just mentioned the grief series that we did. That series spun off its own podcast, Happily Never After, which is also part of the Exvadio network. So, we've been providing different opportunities, not just for experts to come here, but to get their feet into podcasting and launch on their own. So it's been an amazing experience being able to do this. And again, we've talked about the good, we've talked about the positive mindset, we've talked about building businesses and building careers, but we've also talked about the negative, dealing with grief and stress and burnout and how you can overcome and coping with all of it. Again, I keep repeating this, but it's all about going back to the basics. and how your mindset gets you through things, and how putting together systems allows you to navigate all of life's different challenges and all of the challenges at work. And balance it. I always hate the term work life balance, but it's about integrating what you're doing at work and doing with your life. There isn't really a separation. You're not multiple people, it's being you, which is another topic we've talked a lot about: authenticity.
Yeah. And as far as work-life balance goes, I mean, we getting again back to finding and developing your own personal strategic plan, which is for all areas of life. Obviously, whatever you are doing professionally is going to facilitate everything else that you want to do with your life. So, what do you want to do as far as vacations and family and friends and so on and so forth, personal growth? You need to put these down on paper and prioritize things. And we talk about time blocking and planning and so on and so forth. Make plans for all of those. But if you make work and material goods, making money, the primary goal of your life, no matter how much you make, you are going to be miserable. So it all starts again with finding what your person passion is and starting with a positive mindset and working on that person in the mirror first, because we are all unconditionally loved gifts from our maker. And regardless of whether we feel like we're worthy of it or not, we are worthy of joy, just like that's what we were all wished for in the beginning. So this is just getting back to simplicity. Take a time out from these 60,000 thoughts a day that you have in your head. Develop a couple of mantras to get back to a positive mindset, and things that you can repeat to yourself, like peace or love or whatever, one word at a time. If you're stressed out, just sit there, kind of stare into space, and just keep repeating that word to calm yourself down. These are things that we've talked about too. I mean, meditation and those things. But the message is life is not as complicated as we think it is. Because we think it is, that's how we made it complicated in the first place.
Yes, we've talked a lot about simplifying, and we've done a number of episodes on mindfulness and meditation and being present in the current moment and enjoying that current moment. You know, it's so important to be aware of your surroundings and being aware of what's going on inside of you, not just around you. So we've that's something else that we've talked a lot about. And when you do so, when you're actually aware, everything does become simpler. We tend to make things much more complicated than they need to be. And when you simplify things, whether it's just by taking a breath or by looking at things from a new perspective, both of which are topics we've talked about quite often, it's amazing what you can see that you might have otherwise missed. And when you do that, your story starts to come out, which is also yet another topic that we've talked about on numerous occasions, is your story and getting your story out there. And how important telling a story is to communicating ideas. And again, it just, as we're talking, you can see how it all ties in. Everything we've talked about, even though they might have seemed radically different at the time, it all ties into our common theme.
Yep. Basically, it's just present moment awareness of everything that's going on around us, awareness that we are all one, and we are all just striving for joy in our lives by giving our true selves, our best selves out to the world and receiving it back again. That's what it's all about. I mean, that's one of the things we talked about too, is the ability to receive. A lot of
Yes,
people give, and they feel guilty giving gratitude back. And the bottom line is life is a circle. And if you're not receiving, you're breaking that circle.
yes, we talked about that with Bob Berg. That's a key principle in his Go Giver series. I believe it's the fourth law of reciprocity.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, he made such a brilliant point about it. And I loved what he had said about taking a breath. It's like Just exhale and keep exhaling and keep exhaling. Well, how long do you think you can do this for? You have to inhale. You have to be willing to receive because you can't keep exhaling until you take a good inhale. You can't keep giving unless you start getting something back to recharge yourself and make yourself more successful. That's how the reciprocity works. So, so many people are, want to give and give, and they're, ashamed to get back, or they're uncomfortable giving back. And it's amazing how many people we've talked to that have a problem simply saying you're welcome. It's oh, it's nothing, don't worry about it, and they minimize their own accomplishments and what they're doing. And yet that's so much part of the success, is that it has to be shared. You give and you get.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it has to be a mindset shift because when you really think about it, if you're giving, 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 and so on and so forth, and you don't want to receive, your brain, which is your ego, is saying to yourself, I'm not worthy of that, which is a very negative thing to do. Whereas your heart, when you're giving, when you're in the act of that, you just lose all thoughts from your brain and you're doing the unconditional giving act. And that's your true self. But if you step away from that and you're afraid to receive thanks from somebody for doing that and gratitude, which is a huge, huge practice that everybody needs to get into, you're breaking the circle and you're going to be living a miserable life, even though you're doing so many wonderful, wonderful things. You are worthy of receiving. And you know, when you're receiving from somebody, it's not hitting you in the head, it's hitting you in the heart because that's where it's coming from. And giving and receiving is from the heart. So open up your heart and receive because you're doing a whole lot of giving.
That's it. And we talk a lot about positive energy and positive mindset, but when you're not open to receiving, that cuts the cycle. You're giving positivity when you're doing for someone else, but if you're not willing to receive, you're stopping them from spreading the positivity back. And it's that cycle that causes the positivity to grow and grows that positive energy into something that promotes success. So you do really need to be able to accept thanks and accept people doing for you just as much as you're doing for other people.
Yeah, you said a key word there. By not accepting their gratitude, you're actually holding back the person that you just did good for because they want to give to you as much as they can. Again, it's a circle. It's got to keep going around and around and around. There's no beginning, there's no end. Just go out there and give and receive. And that's what life is all about. And if you can do that unconditionally on both ends, you are going to be a happy camper.
Absolutely. And, over the past 300 episodes, as much as we've talked about these basics, we've also talked about strategies for implementing them, and we've talked about tools to get these things done. Different things like time management tools. You mentioned time blocking earlier. We've talked about using AI. We've talked about different software programs and spreadsheets and journals. And there's no end to the number of tools that can be drawn in to actually accomplish more with these basics that we keep going back to. And I think that's a really big takeaway that we keep hitting from, periodically, is that you can have the greatest intentions, you can have the greatest plan, but if you don't take action and actually do something with them, then it's all for naught. The biggest part of all of this is execution. You can master the basics, but if you're not executing them, and if you're not out there sharing this and doing for others and doing for yourself, it's the doing that accomplishes things. And we've talked a lot about that as well. Once you get past the basics, You actually have to get things done, which was another book we talked about over the course of the podcast, Getting Things Done by David Allen.
Yep. And the 4 points you were talking about last week, one of them was yes, you can. And
Yep.
that's really, you know, who was it? Teddy Roosevelt said, if I could kick the person in the rear that is most responsible for my problems in life, I wouldn't walk for weeks.
Right.
You know, a lot of it is a result of procrastination.
And Henry Ford famously said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yep.
It's a matter of mindset. And as long as you have the mindset that yes, you can, that's step one. Then you actually have to move from yes, I can to yes, I will, and yes, I am, and finally, yes, I did.
Yep.
And that's all of these things we've talked about. And again, they seem like they're such disparate topics from grief to time management to mindset, but it all ties in to growing your business, to growing yourself, to growing your career, to growing your family. It's all about growth, personal and professional, and about accomplishing more. And hopefully, ultimately, if we accomplish nothing else with this podcast, I'd like to think when all is said and done, when we finish up, we will have left things just a little bit better than they were when we found them.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, basically, gratitude and accepting thanks from people. Think of yourself as a car that fuels the engine to keep you going and going and going and going. And if you run out of that, eventually you're not going to be able to give anymore.
Yeah, and we've been able to not just share tips and tricks, but we've had stories of success from some amazing people on here. We had very early on, we had my friend Teresa Rose DeGray, who helps people through bankruptcy. We had just a few weeks ago, we had Rhonda Peoples, who's creating a business to help clean up the environment and get rid of microplastics, not just to help the environment, but help people's health. We've had so many people who have been willing to give of their time. We've had folks to share their gifts and their stories of success. And it's been an amazing journey. And I don't know about you, but I can't wait to see where the next 300 episodes take us.
Wow. For me, it
Yeah.
might be the retirement home. No, I'm just kidding. No, it seems like just yesterday we got this going. Time flies. And that's part of a side effect of doing something you love to do in the gratitude process. So
That's it. It all goes back to that old saying, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Well, this has gone by incredibly quickly. Again, and I do want to express our gratitude to all of our listeners, to all of our guests, and to all of the folks that have taught me lessons that I've been able to bring onto the podcast. I mean, you hear the two of us every week, but almost every week. We actually do about 30 episodes a year. But there are so many other people that contribute to this. All of our guests, all of the folks that we're learning from and that we can pass on, and the experiences that they've shared with our listeners. And of course, the listeners who we wouldn't be here without them. So this is such a group production from everybody. And I really want to express our gratitude to every one of them.
yeah, I totally agree. And I want to express my gratitude for you for getting me involved with this in the first place. Who could have predicted it was going to go where it did? But you know what? In hindsight, doesn't surprise me a bit.
Well, again, back at you. If you hadn't gotten me involved in that first live event that started off the Success Showcase, none of this would have happened. So thank you for being my partner through all of these episodes, and thank you for kicking this off with those live events. And we just mentioned how quickly time flies. Well, from the clock on the wall, I see we're just about out of time for this episode. So, Chip, what's the big takeaway from 300 episodes?
Awareness of the present moment. That's all life is. Simplify it to that and realize that how you respond to life's events is your choice. You're not going to always respond positively, but you now have that awareness that you can choose that and just keep saying positivity, 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 and your life will be a lot happier. Obviously, all these tools we've given you are great, but I like to simplify things. Present moment, your response to life's events is your choice. Choose positivity. I approve that message.
Absolutely. I think if I had to sum up 300 episodes, it would be aware of yourself and your surroundings. Understand what you're capable of and go out and get it done. You can make a difference and leave things better off than you found them just by making that effort. Being your authentic self and letting things happen. Don't react, respond. And we've talked about these so many times, but the impact of a single person is like a ripple in a pond. You hit that one point and that ripple expands and hits everything else in the pond. And that's the power that every one of us has. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch every episode at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. And we'll see you then for episode 301.